friends. This is the Be Real Babe podcast, a place where your average Canadian wolf pack come together to talk about life stresses, messes, and successes. Each week, we will bring you new episodes sharing our experiences on a ton of different topics in hopes that we get a better understanding of ourselves, each other, and this crazy world we live in. We want to build a community where we can show up as ourselves, be real, and lay it all out there. By sharing our experiences, we hope to reach others who can relate so we can all help each other learn, grow, and heal. But please keep in mind, as a disclaimer, none of us here are professionals, no one is giving any advice. We are strictly speaking of our life experiences and for entertainment purposes only. Now, with that being said, it's time. So grab your drink, grab your joint, and let's jump right in. Welcome, everyone. Welcome back to the Be Real Babe podcast. I am your host, Brandi, and here with me today is my beautiful co-host, Kayla. Hey, girl.
Hey.
How you doing today?
Oh, I'm good. How are you?
I am good. It is beautiful in British Columbia.
The weather, man. Oh, the weather. And out at the beach. I was also at the beach. It's just kind of like I don't know, something the sun has given a lot of people some semblance for people that the sun's like, fuck yeah, if that's all it takes to get everyone feeling good and having a smile about something, bring on the sunshine.
Totally. And I feel like for myself too, my soul has just lifted so much. The sunshine, that vitamin D, it definitely, like we've been preaching, it's something that's super important. So I know we can't go out and do many things in cities, but if you're anywhere, get outside. I mean, I know we have a lot of people in Grand Prairie. I was encouraging girls, I was like, just go lay on your friggin' front deck, your lawn, just absorb as
grass,
much
anything.
Yeah, any vitamin D that you can get, because it literally just lifts your soul. Unplug for a minute and just breathe in the air. I mean, I know. And then I immediately was like, oh, but it's supposed to snow next week. I'm like, well, just enjoy it now.
It's supposed to snow?
Yeah, it's supposed to snow next week in Grand Prairie, apparently.
Oh, in Grand Prairie. I'm like, please tell me not in BC.
No,
okay.
No. So I felt kind of bad, but anyways,
okay.
And it's great. And it's totally warmed my soul, which is probably needed because today's episode, you guys, we're going on a little bit of a topic that's going to be a little bit more obviously sensitive, especially for myself. So we're going to be talking about miscarriage in episode 14. So just a little bit of a trigger warning, you guys, if this is something that you are struggling with or have struggled with, or just something that maybe you don't want to hear or whichever, no offense taken. I totally understand. Honestly, if it was last year, I'm not sure that I would be able to talk about things like I'm going to talk about today. So I totally understand, but I want to put a big trigger warning on this because I am going to be really honest and real in this episode. And in the next episode, episode 15, we also have some guests coming on that are really ready to be very honest and open and raw and real about their experiences, because this happens far more than people know, and women are terrified to talk about it. And we're kind of here to say you shouldn't be, not that you shouldn't be, we're not gonna tell you how to feel, but we're saying that we're done feeling that way and we want to talk about it because it is a very big thing to go through. And I myself have developed this thing over time. It's like a trauma response where I just diminish things that I go through. I don't know if that's just to make it easier. I don't know if I'm not sure where I developed that, but it's become kind of toxic in the sense that everything that has happened to me on a larger, small scale, I diminish to barely nothing, which is good in a sense that I can continue with my life without it disrupting me too much. But then it comes out really heavy in areas when I'm definitely feeling my most weakest or most vulnerable. And it's really apparent to me that I haven't dealt with that original trauma. So for this episode, again, like we said, bounce out if you need to. Kayla's kind of going to let me kind of run with this. And we're just going to kind of talk about my whole entire experience, because I think it's important, even if it is to me on a small scale. And I'm going to say now, I know that what my experience is very, to me, minimal, maybe not to most people, but I know there's a lot more women that have it harder than me. And I don't know if I've just always told myself that to make myself feel better. But nonetheless, I know that there's more, but I wanted to share my experiences. So if there are women out there that are going through this, they feel a little less alone, and to open the dialogue that please come and talk to me at any point, or we can connect you with other women, especially the ones that are going to come on in our guest episode that have dealt with this maybe on a little bit of in different experiences that maybe you'll relate to. But today we're going to talk about my story a little bit.
Yeah. And I'm like, I'm just excited to be able to always get together and have these conversations and talk about the stuff that we do like this, because it actually is, I think, super helpful for a lot of people, but also for myself as of late. Like, I've really been leaning back to like a lot of our conversations we've been having, and it's like, okay, this is how you get through life. This is how you do it. You have your support, you have your people. So I'm excited to, not about the topic that we're talking about. I'm not excited that this is something that we have to, that you've gone through. I'm actually quite sad about that, but I'm excited to talk about it and get, break the ice and get the conversation rolling for anyone else out there who's feeling afraid or ashamed or guilty or anything. Like, this is your space. Like, you're safe with us. We're ready. We're ready to talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what we can say is that through this, we've realized that even though maybe we haven't gone through a certain experience, that doesn't mean that we haven't related on the feelings or the reactions, or any, just because the trauma is not the same, it doesn't mean you can't relate and use some of the strength or other people's stories to help with your own, even if maybe, like Kayla, you've not had that experience, but I would never wish that, but if ever happens to you, at least maybe now you'll have a little bit more of an insight.
Yeah.
Not that it's going to make it easier. Nothing makes it easier. But I think just having the resources, or then immediately knowing who you can go to if that ever happens, or if, say, something goes on in your life, for example, that's similar to some sort of loss, like there's tools that people have used, or maybe I've used, that will help you in that moment. So although for us, we say that, we might not have the experience, but we really want to hear about it, because that's just how you can help others, how you can help yourself, how you can grow, and we can evolve as a society. So it's, even though maybe not everyone will relate to my story, maybe they'll have something similar and they'll feel empowered to feel a little better about it, or search for the right people to talk to. But anyways, I could go on forever. For me, if you haven't heard the birth control episode, definitely jump over to that one as well, because we kind of go through a little bit of my experience. But basically, if you haven't heard and you've just jumped to this one, I've always had problems with my uterus, where it was like my cramps were so bad I had to go to the hospital to get shots. Then I was immediately put on Tylenol 3 because they were like I couldn't function. And if you know me as a person, I think you know that I'm a pretty pain tolerant person. I think I'm pretty strong. My mom has fibromyalgia. I've watched her struggle with that. So she's kind of taught me like how to overcome pain. So I think I just really would just like dismiss it and keep going. But it was pretty bad. Like I'd almost throw up at work. I would have to go into the freezer because I would be so hot and want to throw up. And so then, yeah, it was terrible. And they couldn't figure out what it was. So they would just put me on Tylenol 3. And I was on and off different types of birth control. Like I said, I had blood clots. Like it was just not a good time for me. So they ruled out endometriosis at the time, but they said, we can't really say what's wrong, but just know that like there might be issues. Now I find
that odd.
Yeah, I've been sexually active since I was, like 16 years old, and I've had obviously forms of birth control and they've worked, but there's always been something in the back of my mind that it's like, did the forms of birth control work, or just maybe you were not able to conceive? So then fast forward to then when I'm with my husband and we're married and we're trying, and we've talked about these pressures, and this was the time that was the hardest for me. At that time, I was dead set on becoming a mom. We had gotten married. That's what you did. And, like I said, I don't have any ill will against my ex-husband. I never have. We're just not, grew to be different people. So although at that point I was like, I don't even know if I want to be a mom, because I was so hell bent on my career, and I was finally getting somewhere with that. And I didn't really want to give that up. And I know you can have both, but for me, I just, knowing that it might not be an easy journey, I wasn't really ready to take that on mentally yet, if I wasn't going to be able to.
Fair.
Right. So we were going through it, and then I was like, no, let's do it. And I just kept going back and forth, and I wasn't ending up pregnant. And then it just kind of dawned on me, like, that's not where I am right now. And I'm not ready to take this on. And then it was just like the pressures of it and people continually asking. And like I said, I don't want to have that conversation with everyone. I don't know if other people can relate to that. And it's not that I'm ashamed of it. It's not that I don't want the support for it, or I want to like deal with this on my own. Um, it's just not something I want to have a part of the conversation all the time. So, you know, when you're constantly being asked and it's like, you guys are married, so that's what you should be doing, and other people are doing it around you, and you're like, that's great, I don't know if I can. And then you start having all this self-doubt and no one to like really talk about it, then you just kind of spiral in that loneliness of it. And then you're just like, okay, now I'm not a woman because I can't do this. And you just don't know what to say. And you know, it's a really weird time. And the internet wasn't as, let's say, resourceful as it was now, as it was 10 years ago. Like, this is when I was 25, 26, 27, and that it was just like you had your friends, but there wasn't as much like support groups or anything like that.
No.
And if you didn't talk to your friends about it because you didn't feel like a woman, then you just really felt alone in it. So that was just a really shitty part. So I just urge everyone, like, I understand, again, and I've said this 100 times in the pregnancy one and birth control, like, we understand totally. And for myself, I'm not going to speak for anyone else, I understand where you're coming from when you ask those questions, because being a mom is amazing and having children is so beautiful. And of course, like, if those that want it, of course it would be nice if it was just that easy, but it's not for some. And although your questions are rooted in love and their intentions are so great, unfortunately not everyone's in a space to receive it that way. So not saying that you have to pitter patter over people, but that being said, if it's not received like you mean it to be, like that's probably why. And it's not anything and anyone's fault. It's just unfortunate realities. And that's kind of just where it was for me until I started being very open about it, being like, hey, you guys, like, I don't know if I can. I'm not sure if that's a possibility. If I can, or if I do, y'all will be the first to fucking know. Trust me. Right?
Yeah. And I mean, I just don't like that. Like, I know that it sounds like whiny or whatever of me, but it feels so uncomfortable to hear another female talk about her struggle of pressures. Cause it's like, we're literally always under the scope here. Somehow, some way, we're always under some weird ass scope where everyone's like, the pressure is on, and it's like, why does it need to be like that? And I get it, like you're saying, like everyone means well, because we talked about it. I believe we talked about it in our pregnancy episode where people just were like, you know, when are you gonna have your next one? And it's like, Jesus, that I just just came out of like that first week, and I'm like, I don't even know what life is right now. Like, can we just like hold up and not ask me that right now or ever for the next forever? Just I don't know. It's weird. It's a weird thing, and it's so weird that we have different experiences with people pressures and society pressures, but it's just like, I'm glad we're talking about it because it's fucked. And I mean, like, I wish that we would have known each other or something, or, you know, that you would have had someone to talk to. Cause like you're saying, technology and the internet is like nothing what it was back then. So I'm sad. I'm sad that that's a reality for a lot of us out there, is that we just get asked these weird questions. And it's like, you know, people would really frown upon us if we were like, yeah, well, how was your last poop? You know what I mean? Like, You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
How was your last poop? What was the color of your last poop? Like, if we just started asking random ass shit about people's body functions to them, like, they would get offended, right? And that's the thing. Like, just think about the things you're asking people and like the way that you're constructing it when you're asking it. Because like there's possibly a more gentle way to go about it rather than just being really blunt. And like, I get it. There's generations that are just super blunt, but it's like, just be prepared for us to ask you about your poop.
Yeah, well, and like we said, we get it, but I'm excited that now people are aware, and like you said, back then you got married and you had tons of kids, and that was very much every reality. But we've come very far from that, so that I'm excited to see the conversations changing, like I'm saying, like asking and just like gauging that person and their life. Like, for example, it's very easy to figure out what people are all about. If you go to my Instagram page, even though it is my highlights, of course, you're going to see what I'm interested. You're going to see me and Grant doing fun things together. You're going to see me doing photography. You're going to see me doing fitness and with the cats and, sharing words, like, you're not going to see me sharing kids and stuff like that. So I think it's fair to say if you're going to, or you're going to see me share about like cannabis and like my job, like, so it's fair to say, talk to me on all those topics. And if I lead that into the conversation where we talk about kids, then for sure. I'm not telling people how to structure stuff. I'm just saying, like, if people, if, you know, for myself, that's how I've evolved, because I will do the same thing. Even if, so I'm like, oh, you've had one kid. It's so ignorant to think that they wouldn't have trouble. Well, you've had one, so of course you're going to have another. Like, that is so ignorant to say. And as I was researching, you know, obviously I want to see how other people are handling, not handling, but the stuff that they've had to go through, let's say. They're just saying like certain things that are kind of inappropriate to say. And it's just like, that's one thing I know for a lot of my other moms. It's like, and I'm guilty of it too, so I apologize. It's like, oh, when you're having your second, and like you said, you're like, whoa, like, I'm just trying to figure out my first. What the heck, dude? Now you want me to focus on my second? Like, whoa, 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 whoa. And who's to say I'm going to? And then you have to explain to them that you don't want to have a second. So I think there's nothing wrong with talking about people's kids and all that. But I think it's really awesome if we root the conversations and stuff that we already know they're super passionate about. Like, talk about their first kid and how awesome they are. And if they're like, yeah, we can't wait to have a second, well, by golly, there's your fucking entry into being like, oh, awesome, you're gonna have another kid, cool. Right? And I
Yes.
think that that will really, I don't know, I'm not, again, not speaking for anyone else, and we've always opened a platform if you want to talk about your stories and you want to help educate people on your experiences and the things that, you know, because for me, if I'm like, oh my gosh, you're going through that struggle, how I frame this or like help you, support you in this. And most of the time people will be like, stop pussyfooting around me, because like I just want, you know, like,
I want to be
don't.
treated normal.
Exactly. And like, I want to like honor my losses and all that. So I think it's really great to open the conversation. And I don't wish that I had more advice to give, because then obviously that would mean I'd have to through more. But just for me personally, going through being married and the pressures of not knowing, being a teenager and going through all this whack bullshit. And then that kind of leads me to like, obviously what we're talking about today is my miscarriage. So, I do a lot of the time diminish my trauma, because I don't know why. I don't know why. I just don't know. But it's what I do. And sometimes I love it and sometimes I hate it. So I know that my story is going to be a little, you know, like on a smaller scale. And again, that's not just me diminishing it. It's also recognizing the women that have had far more struggles in this area than myself. So I just want to say that. But here today, I thought I'd share a little bit about how it went down for me, because I didn't share this on social media and a lot of people didn't know. And it's not, again, because I don't think it's not worth telling. It was just kind of like, how do you just like post this on your social
Yeah.
media?
And yeah, it's a really like it's a really vulnerable thing. And the I know a couple women who have gone through it, and it's it's really raw to put on your social media. It's a super raw thing to do, and it really opens you up to a lot of like unsolicited shit for one. But I think the one girl that I know specifically that has that I've seen that posted about it, like I was like, I think all of a sudden I was just really enamored by the fact that she had the courage to like in the world today and the way things are, to like be like, hey, this happened and I'm hurting, because it was like she was really hurting. So I don't know, and then it makes me sad because I'm like, fuck, I wish that you would have had something for you, like somebody to be there. Like, we're sisters, you know, women were sisters. Like, hearing the fact that you've gone through this makes my fucking womb hurt for you. Like that's a reality.
And I think we also, and I'm just like gonna call myself out for this, like I again diminished everything that I went through and didn't think it was that big of a deal, because I look up to those women, like you said, that are posting and being vulnerable. And it's not that to me necessarily thinking that I shouldn't talk about it. It was just like, well, look, I wasn't trying. It's something that I always knew was a possibility if I was going to get pregnant. So I just continually told myself all of these things about it. You know, we weren't trying, it wasn't the time anyways. Like, I just, to really not diminish it, but maybe just to get through it. I'm not entirely sure why. So it's like,
So you're
how am I
coping.
gonna like, yeah. And I was like, no one is going to look at my story or relate to my story, because it's so small compared to all these other women that have gone through much harder struggles in this area than me. No one wants to hear my tiny little story. And it's not that that's true, but that's just kind of where my mindset was as to why it was just like, you know, like if I was trying and people knew, like obviously I would have to talk about it, but it was like something that I just didn't know how to talk about
For
and how
sure.
to say it. So it was like, why make a post about it? People around me that knew me really close, or like some people that have gotten a little aggressive over the last couple of years asking me and Grant like when we're gonna have kids. Like it I've been married and divorced. We've been through that. We're just happy being us. And if we end up being pregnant or have kids, like I promise you guys will be the first to know, but it just seems like so strange to me. Like we're not, maybe I'm just traditional because like we're not engaged or married. So it was just like, when are you having kids? And it's like, I don't even know how to answer that. So, and I
Yeah.
get it, but I get it. I totally understand that. And I love that. But I love that there's definitely more talks of like, oh, what are you guys doing this weekend or this summer? Because it makes it a little bit easier if I'm just not in a headspace. Sometimes I'm really great to talk about it. Today I'm good. Some days I don't want to. And that's one thing, it keeps coming up on my memories on my OneDrive because, okay, so back to this because I keep squirreling. So, um, when this happened, so again, yes, so my story. So when this happened, I was working at the store. I was managing a cannabis store, recreational store in Grand Prairie, Lucky Leaf. And I thought I had started my period in the morning. And on Friday mornings, at the time, was when we received our orders. So we get a big shipment in, there's lots of moving. So unfortunately, at the same time, my assistant manager, her husband's mom was really sick in the hospital, like essentially passing away in the hospital at the same time. So she was like, okay, I'm going to come in and do the order with you, get it going. And then I'm going to kind of like head for the rest of the weekend. And I was like, it's fine. I'll do split shifts all weekend to cover. Like, please do not worry about us. Like, you know, like I feel like I'm a pretty, and I'm sure my people from the store will like agree that I'm pretty compassionate manager. So like, I will take over the whole store if I need to, if you're hurting. So like, go, no big deal. I got my period and bitchy, but whatever. And so we're putting most of the stuff away. We're almost done. And I like, honestly, so like, yeah, like again, guys, I'm going to trigger warn. This is the next little 5 minutes is going to be kind of like wild. So bounce out if you need to, or skip ahead 5 minutes. So I was like in the store having a drink, and I literally had the worst cramp I've ever had in my life. I thought I was going to throw up. I thought I was going to die. And I was like, oh my God. And it brought me back to my 16-year-old self being in Dairy Queen, almost passing out from the pain. And I was like, whoa, like I haven't felt this kind of cramps like we've talked about in like the birth control episode. My cramps, like they're annoying the first day, like yeah, I want to be mad, but this was like, I'm going to die cramp. And I was like, that is fucking weird, but whatever, just carried on. So I go home because I'm doing a split shift. Emma goes to the hospital and I'm on my break, and I kind of have a doobie, and I was like, hey, whatever, I should go change my tampon, you know, whatever. Mm-hmm. And then I go to the bathroom, and then it happens and it comes out. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? And so, like, this is going to sound gross, guys, but like knowing how doctors are and knowing like it doesn't matter how gross things are. Sometimes you just have to do what you have to do. So I'm like, there's no way I'm going to be able to explain to her what I'm looking at right now. So I took a picture of it, flushed it down the toilet, sat there, and I was like, what the fuck just happened? Like, what the actual fuck just happened? Mm. And then I go outside and I smoke a joint. Now here's one thing that was like really hard, and like, it's okay. I'm okay, guys, but this is just like how my life rolls. So Grant's always worked away. That's just, it's since this year. So we've had so much time together. It's been amazing. But unfortunately, a lot of the bad things that have ever happened to me, or like harder things, Grant has always been away, just totally by fluke, not wanted. So he was gone. Obviously my manager was gone. And I honestly just didn't know what happened. So I obviously call my mom. This is like, Mom, this happened. I think I just had a miscarriage. That's what it looks like. Like, it looked like a little sac. Like, that's like, this isn't just like normal period. This isn't normal like discharge. This is
something
this
weird.
is something.
Yeah.
This is something weird, right? So obviously I call into the doctor right away. I can't get in until Monday, obviously. Or I think it was like Wednesday or something like that. Sorry, I think it was like Wednesday, and I was like, oh, we should be fine. Grant's coming back, and I want him to come to this. Like, even though I didn't tell him, like, I want him to come to it. So I booked the doctor's appointment. I call my mom. I'm like, I don't really have a choice right now. Like, I have to go fucking run the store. Like, it is what it is. Like, we're not, you know, and I just like put on this like survivor thought process where it's like, the store needs me. I need to go to work. I essentially do not have time to deal with this, like, whatever the fuck just happened.
Yeah.
Like, so I just smoked a joint, like ate some food, like cried, obviously, because I was just like, I have no idea what's going on. And then I was just like, I'm just always like a buck up kind of person. So I got changed and went to work and didn't say a fucking word to anybody. Like, nobody. I didn't tell Grant. I didn't tell Emma. I didn't tell anybody I was working with what was going on. I was not ready to answer questions that I had no idea about. And it wasn't to not tell Grant because I didn't want his support. I didn't want him to have the grief of being gone through me going through this when I didn't even know how I felt about anything yet. Like I just didn't have time to process in my mind. I was just like, get through this weekend. Monday, you can like figure shit out and like break down. And I'm pretty sure it was like Sunday night that I ended up telling Grant I just had to get through this like busy weekend.
Oh.
And obviously telling Emma too. So she, and obviously everyone was upset that I held it. And I understand that. But for me, it was just like,
how do you even begin? Like, is what, that's
yeah,
where I'm at. Like, I wouldn't even know how to, I wouldn't even know. Yeah, I wouldn't even know. Exactly, I would be like, right? What the fuck just happened to my body?
Exactly. So I had like messed up with birth control, obviously, and that's how we had gotten pregnant. But for in that moment, it was just so confusing to me because I've been told forever that I couldn't. And, you know, being with the same boyfriend through high school and really just using the pull-out method for the most part. And then obviously being on birth control, but then coming off with my husband and like essentially trying. But again, he worked away. So that was a hard thing too. And then to being with Grant, thinking I'm on birth control, you know, and people always joke like, you know, not joke, but they say, you know, there's sometimes you can't get pregnant, and that's not true. Again, even if you miss one or two, yeah, obviously, but and it didn't stick, and for whatever reason, so I just told myself like, but then so after the weekend happened, and then I told Grant, and he was like obviously trying to be there for me, and like, you know, for him we weren't like, this sounds terrible and I hate to say this and I'm not diminishing it, but in the sense where it was like, for me it was like we weren't trying, so like it was very sad loss, and obviously the hormones that trickle through whether you want them or not after the fact are there, but it was just more or less for me it was just like, okay, well, you know, it's not the time right now and that's okay. Yeah. But then after, obviously more thoughts came through. So anyways, my mom was obviously there the whole time through me. And then Grant came home, and then we went to the doctors and I showed her the picture and she was like, yeah, that's 100%. You had a miscarriage. It looks like you were like, you know, like maybe 6 weeks along, not obviously too far along. So I didn't require a D&C, which is kind of, in a sense, great. She was like, it looks like everything just kind of came out naturally,
which so is better. Like, I honestly, as weird as that's going to sound for the people listening, it's nope. I personally would prefer that, honestly, because a D&C, you guys, is pretty fucking intense.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I don't have it. Obviously, haven't had that. So like, but I've heard from many people around me, because you guys, this is so common. When I was reading up stuff, it was 1 in 4 women have suffered a miscarriage or child loss, and 1 in 8 suffer with infertility. So it's definitely, I know a lot of people don't talk about it, guys, but I'm also one of those advocates that say, just because people don't share that on social media or in your personal life doesn't fucking mean they're not going through it. And it doesn't mean more people aren't. It just means that there's a wild, weird fucking stigma around it, that people don't feel safe to talk about it. And I can attest to that my whole life, or not whole life, but, you know, 16 to 34, having to deal with these kind of things. So to not, like I said, to be told that you're not gonna get pregnant, to being on birth control, to all of a sudden now I'm having a miscarriage, like what the fuck just happened? And then so then the doctor was like, well, do you want to go back on birth control? And I was like, no, like I can't. No. I went from like having my period to being pregnant to having a miscarriage to my body trying to like resume its balance. I am not fucking, and then just getting like off of anxiety meds too, like previously, like I'm not fucking doing anything more to my body. Like I'm done. I am done. And at that point, I was like literally the thinnest and leanest I'd ever been, which I find super not funny. This is not funny, but ironic, because when I was actually trying with my husband, I was like I was not that I was like not as lean. I was still like thin, but not as like lean and built as I was. And people then were telling me like, oh, you know, and not eating as well back then, were like, oh, you need to put on pounds to get pregnant. And I was just like, oh, well, funny how like I'm the leanest I ever have, and I actually did on birth control, like not necessarily trying, but like total fluke by chance that happened. Obviously didn't stick. But so then the thoughts of, yep, you were too lean and that's why you lost the baby. Then it was, okay, you're working too hard, because I was working balls to the walls to get that store open. Like, we'll talk about this. We're going to have a whole month on cannabis, guys. I'm fucking so excited for that whole entire month. But I was managing a recreational store in GP. It was the only one. at the opening of, the legalization. And it was a lot of fucking work, like a lot of work. I worked really hard. I was not eating properly because I was just working. I was teaching fitness classes. I was doing classes. I was at the gym, like crazy training. Like it was, so then of course, then I'm like, yep, that's it. That's why. And like, it's just a really fucking weird headspace to be in. So, um, and then after that, and again, not a lot of people know that. Again, that's why that sparked me getting off birth control. And then secondly, that is one of the biggest reasons why we packed up and moved to Kelowna. Because I was like, if I did get pregnant and it was for real, and I'm not bashing Grand Prairie, but I just knew that wasn't where our end goal was. And I was like, we're just like kind of wasting years. And so it was kind of, that's what sparked a lot of the conversations. And it was just like a realization that I've dumped my whole life into working, and not that I was ready to necessarily have the journey of trying to get pregnant or adoption or however we do that. But I just knew that I wanted to be set up and have a foundation of where we're doing that for when we were ready to take that on. So that was like a big push as to why. And then the September following, we were living in Kelowna. So that was just like a really big wake up call to being like, whoa, like I'm just letting life pass me by. I need to start like fucking getting focused and get shit done. And that's kind of for both of us. And so it was just a really hard time. Again, I don't know sometimes if I ever fully dealt with it because I just like minimize it so much. But the one of the things it's super sad to, as you were only a couple weeks, or at least you weren't trying, and it unfortunately, no matter how much you try to work your mindset around it, you don't really get to reset those patterns in your brain when you're trickling down that. And you don't have a choice because it's also the hormones in your body. So I would sit there and be like, I would start crying, and Grant was like, are you okay? And I'm like, yes, I'm okay. But I can't stop this. Like, I just can't. Like, it's just like, I'm okay. Don't worry. It just naturally needs to happen. And because I did kind of like a little bit of research when it was happening to understand what was going, because I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I'm not trying. Like, why was this so detrimental? And it was, because it's a loss, but it was also like the scientific behind it is like, well, yeah, like your body went from like birth control to fucking up birth control to having your period to being pregnant to having a miscarriage to then try, and then your body sometimes can think it's still pregnant for a couple
it's trying to regulate
weeks after. It doesn't really know that you've lost the baby, so it's acting as if you are pregnant. Like my hips were fucking sore, I was nauseous as shit. It was just a really wild time at the same time. And again, like being in this, like, I was like, you push too hard at the gym. So fast forward, like everything was okay. It was sad for me, but again, it was just a very important moment in my life that, although super sad, was the foundation that I did for my future and mine and Grant's future together. That's kind of where we built to where we are now. So, and to be a place where I can talk about it and hopefully have some women relate to that and to share my story. So for now, that's kind of why I was off birth control for so long, and we kind of watch where my cycle is, because I'm not necessarily ready to jump on that. If we try that, it cannot be successful yet. But we are, and I feel safe. I'll share that. But in the meantime, we're just being cat parents, living our life in the Okanagan. I'm good now. I feel really safe about that. There was one triggering moment I had last year. My period was late. It was the exact same time. It was May 9th when it happened. Which was right around fucking Mother's Day, of course. It came up on my OneDrive memory, and I was late, and I was like, holy fuck, here we go again. Like, and so I had mentioned it to this coworker, I'm just a little bit off, and she didn't have the nicest skills, and she was just like, do you think that you work so hard and that's why you lost your baby? And I thought that I had made peace with it, but that comment was just like, nope, you haven't. So then I had to kind of like really do some like inside thinking for a little bit. And now I feel much better about it. It was a year ago, but now coming up on the third year, because it was in 2019. So coming up on the third year. There's that year, 2019. Whoa, I don't know what that is. Weird. Okay, guys.
But
So just like us, heads up, we have a new platform we're trying for the next episode. Legit, you have to pay
oh
for
yeah,
one. So we're legitimately trying. There's been some weird things in this one, but we're gonna try the next one. We're gonna pay for it. So, anyways,
it's a
that was a
weird
weird
little
little moment.
glitch.
Anyways, but yeah, so things are good now. I feel really good. I feel so much better now that I can definitely share my story. People kind of know, like, obviously, if we can give you a Brandi and Grant one day, we will, whether that's by, a lot of people have always asked me if I'd be willing to do in vitro or any things like that. And I fucking commend the women. I know a lot of women who have done it. I know a lot of women who've been successful. I know some that are still working on it. And I fucking commend you women so much for that. This is something that I decided a long time ago, just for me and just who I am. I've always leaned more towards adoption. So for me and like for Grant, he's always been okay with that. That's kind of where I would be really love to lean towards. And obviously knowing you and a couple other people in my life that are, it just really resonated with me. I'm not discrediting any, like, you guys are fucking the most heroic women to me. For me, I really want to possibly give a baby a home that, you know, maybe didn't have the best
Didn't have one.
or
Fuck
didn't
yeah.
have one, right? So,
Because there's so much beauty in that too, and I mean, like, that's a thing too. Like, and that I feel like women who adopt don't get like the same regard as women who have babies naturally. Because like my mom adopted us, and I think she had mat leave, and I think it's a lot different now. Like the government has a lot different things now for people who even adopt. So if you adopt, like, you can take time off with your new baby, and I'm like, why the fuck wouldn't it have always been that way? Like, why is that a different thing? Like, you are still taking a child in and committing to that child, like, whatever age you adopt them at, there's a time where there's transition and everything. You have to everything has to flow. So it's like, I find that super strange and like caveman-y that I'm even saying that it's the times are different. But when my mom adopted, I think she had like 6 months mat leave, and I'm just blown away that it was like that short of time.
oh, I agree. And now too, they're giving more time for grievance, and that's the one thing I really love. Like, for most of you that know and that's following me, like, I recently took stress leave between my jobs, and I didn't realize like how advanced now the medical leave has encompassed. So now, if and maybe there's not, don't get me wrong, but now I feel like there's more when you have that miscarriage and you're going through that. I had a really blessed, like, amazing doctor at my clinic, and I'm going to touch on something else about doctors in a second here.
Mm-hmm.
But he was so kind and was just like so open that medical leave isn't just you broke your leg, you went for surgery. It is emotional trauma, like emotional stress, like having a loss. So those things now, at least you can get a note that's saying medical leave and go on EI, which I don't think that was as prominent back then. So I really love how that's being recognized. And there's actually different countries around the world that are coming out and actually giving grieving mothers proper amount of time before they have to go back to work. And I know Canada's been very advanced in that, and I want to keep seeing that continue, because that is super important that people have the amount of time and the resources, again, to go through all that kind of thing. And so I'm excited that that's changing. And I agree, like, moms that are adopting, and whatever time that you become a parent, even not just moms, dads too, that should be
Yes.
something that if that's for a bunch of other medical reasons, it should be, or for traditionals, and same too. We'll talk about labor in the next episode, guys, and Kayla's gonna take us through that, because obviously I'm gonna hold my headphone earmuffs in listening. But anyways, like that, and that'll be another conversation, that C-sections aren't the easy way out and stuff like that. I keep seeing that post too while we're going through stuff, and it's the same thing. Adoption and all those other ways, those aren't the easier ways out. So why are they not being treated with the same respect as natural? Obviously, you physically need to repair, and that is a lot. I'm not taking away from moms that go through that, but I think to set up children successfully, you want that parent to be able to be home and be with that, especially through those transitions, whether they're newborn from your vag or from, through a social worker at 5 years old to, a teenager through foster care. Like, that time should still be available. And I'm glad that more and more doctors are supporting that now. That being fucking said, A girlfriend of mine that's a nurse shared something that was really, really important that I want to share because we talk about this. Now, again, guys, I know it sounds like sometimes I'm doctor bashing and professional bashing, and I'm absolutely not. I'm trying to find ways to hold professionals accountable, just like we all get held accountable in our jobs and our behavior, because you can go through this and I can take some time and take a snippet from every single guest episode we've had. And I'd say 95% of them have brought their concerns to a professional and have been ignored. So this isn't to say that that is everyone. And if you have a good one, fucking awesome, you want to share it, let's bring them all into the conversation. But if you don't, if you're going through these struggles, I seen this shared and I thought this was a really good step in the right direction. So it read, when a doctor dismisses my symptoms, I say I want it noted in my chart while I wait that they've chosen not to run any tests. Then they run the tests. I recommend this approach to anyone facing discrimination instead of diagnostics. This girl had person, I don't know if it's a girl or boy, had 2 autoimmune disorders. So point being, if they just dismiss you and that's not written on documentation in your chart, it's you against them. If you have it written down that you've asked for tests, you've asked for, I have a friend in my life who knows her body very well, has been through several miscarriages, was trying to tell her doctor, look, no, I need a D&C. He was like, no, everything's fine. She went home. Something bad happened. She went back to the hospital. They still didn't listen to her. As she was leaving the hospital, it happened again. And they finally brought her in. And it's just the trauma that that person had to go through for just someone not listening for whatever reason. I mean, this was, again, probably like maybe 20 years ago. But it still happens to this day. And we hear that in our show so much. So here's one step. Be like, okay, all right, I understand. But can you document that? Because I just want that documented that I noted this so that we can go back historically and look. They have no, and I would stay there. And if that doctor is not willing to do that for you, find a new fucking doctor, man.
Yeah, exactly. I can't even believe that. Like the fact that she had to be bleeding in front of them in that in that amount for them to be like, "Oh, no, something is wrong." It's like I get that you guys went to school and you did a lot of learning and like you have so much knowledge as a doctor, but you can't tell a person what they're experiencing about their own fucking body. Like that's just whack.
And you can say, I'm not sure. Let's look at, I'm maybe not the right
Why don't we
person.
look at it? Yeah.
Why don't we look at it? Like, and it's the same thing. Like, why can't they just fess up and be like, okay, I'm not sure. Maybe we need to see another health professional. Maybe we need to go look at the specialist. And that's like, for example, like this is kind of like a weird comparison, but let's say if you go into a tattoo artist and you're like, hey, I want this portrait of this person that's really important to me, and they don't do portrait, it is really, to me, irresponsible to be like, yeah, sure, and just take it on and practice it. What you need to do at the beginning is like, yo, this isn't my strong suit. This is not something that I am versed in. I can give it a try, but I can't promise I'm going to deliver what you can. Maybe you need to go to a specialist in that genre. Yeah. But instead, that just money hungry person is just like, no, I'm just going to try it. Now you've got a jack tattoo that fucking, you're trying to look like Pam Anderson and it looks like fucking Smeagol. I don't know. But, you know what I mean? It's the same thing with your healthcare or like your professionals. Like, it's not to say that this doctor doesn't know things and that professionals aren't smart. They are. But a lot of them take interest or they're better at something. It's the same thing with any fucking hairstylist, nail salon, like tattoo artists. Like most people have a passion and they're better at those things. So it's really important. Same with your medical. If they're not going to write down that you asked for a test and they declined you, that is a fucking red flag.
Yep, I would hella agree with that. That is a red flag for sure. And it's like, yeah, and it's like Brandi's saying, like, if that happens and you're just not being heard, do not stop. Like, find someone who will listen to you. Like, there are a lot of doctors out there who are very progressive and who don't operate under the, I'm going to call it the old rule. It's weird because it's like, we're coming into a time specifically now, like especially now, and I think everyone can attest to this, that we've watched over the past year doctors who want to share the word be censored. So you have to really take a look at that and like ask yourself, like, what is their bottom line? Is my health and my future part of their bottom line, or is it some other agenda? And like, I'm not trying to like scare everyone and be like, oh my God, fucking conspiracy, whatever, because I know there are a lot of smart people out there who have witnessed this as well this year with what we've seen so much of it. Now doctors are still coming out and saying like, no, this is messed up. So there you have to like always fight for yourself. Like do your due diligence and search out people that will listen, because there are people out there that are not going to tell you that you're crazy.
Yes, which one of them is Dr. Jolene Brighton, and another one, Dr. Britt. We'll share her on our pages, two Dr. Brits actually.
Nice.
And again, there's some things that these women I take a lot from. Some of this stuff, it doesn't relate to me as much, but a lot of the things they're talking about is saying, we're sorry that there's healthcare professionals not listening to you, but we will listen, and we're sorry to hear that. And again, it's not anything against any of them. Just some people have more experience. Some people click. It's just like friends or coworkers. Like, it's just the beat of life. So quit beating your fucking head over this one person.
Mm-hmm.
Look out for other people. And you know what? Guess what? A lot of shit has become digitally online. So believe it or not, you don't necessarily always have to find professionals necessarily in your town. Sometimes now there's online practices that it's like, as long as you're in the province of BC, in Alberta, because they can't do face to face, they'll do online consultations and they can help you.
Yeah.
So, really search and take everybody's opinion. My biggest thing this year is listening to all sides. Okay. So if we're looking at politics, when I was listening to it, obviously I had my one side, but near the end, I was like, hey, you know what? I'm going to listen to people that are pro, let's say American,
Mm-hmm.
like pro Trump and pro Biden, and know what everyone is thinking and all sides, and having a full understanding. The same reason why we're doing this podcast, having all these different perspectives so you can get a full fucking scope and not a biased one, or not one that has a narrative, or not one, like
Yes.
we talk about conspiracies on this, it's like, we're not saying a lot of them are, well, we don't talk about them, but we're not saying that we believe in all these things, but what we love about it is the thought that it ends and it leads to discussions. And that's really what science is. And that's really what all of this is talking together so we can all find our commonalities and potentially help each other. Like, again, the whole part of the podcast. And so exactly for this, it's like, girls, if you're like me and you've had a little one, not a little one, but something that you've like, it's okay to be upset about it. It's okay to share your story. And just because your pain didn't feel as big as maybe somebody else's, it's okay to talk about it too. Don't diminish your trauma. I mean, if you have to survive it, sure. But when you're ready, like, make sure you're opening it up and really, it's okay to be upset about it.
Unpack it.
Unpack it, call it what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you need to talk about it, me and Kayla are always here. The girls that are going to come in the next episode, they're always here to talk as well. And let's start opening up that this is hard. It's not something that's easy. And you know what? Just kind of before we wrap up the show here today, I just wanted to say, if you don't know what to say, I'm not an expert in this, but we're going to share some posts that I found in the coming week. But the best thing and default answer for anything for everyone: I'm sorry you're going through this, went through that. How can I support you?
Yeah.
Simple.
Huge. Simple. It's huge. It's huge to say that.
Because you know what? Sometimes we don't know the person that's hurting. So it's frustrating too. And everyone can probably relate to this. And it's not in a mean frustration, but people are trying to help make you feel better. But in the same sense, you're like, that's not, and it's making me feel worse, adding all these other facts and thoughts and hypotheticals. So it's just like, basic, how can I help you? Just listen, just be there, just tell me that I'm an awesome person. Like, then that opens a conversation for the person that's hurting to tell you in that moment, because it's going to change day to day or time to time, or even a year down the road, something will just happen and you just need sometimes to be held and hugged to cry through it, and that's okay. And then sometimes you want to joke about it, and it's not always healthy, but sometimes that's just, when to get me through it, I had to have like kind of dark humor about it because I didn't know what else to do. And the Grant and our best friend Jeremy, like, they were really good about that with me. And when I needed to cry, like, he was there. But when I needed to joke about it or laugh, like, because I just needed it to be light in my soul, because I'm also one of those people, if it gets too dark, it gets too dark. So sometimes you need a little lightness to just kind of shake it up, whether that's inappropriate or not. But everyone heals how they want to. So that's kind of my story of what happened with me. I hope everyone kind of took a little bit something. And again, I think too, I just didn't want people necessarily, and I love that you feel for me, Kay, I really do. I think that's why I didn't always want to share it, because I was just like, it was hard, but like, it taught me a lot, and it made me have empathy for women that go through this on such a grand level. And it really fueled me to be more honest and talk about it and get the conversation starting, and pioneer this with that. So thank you for letting me just kind of lay it out there today. We didn't have any polls or nothing. It was just kind of like me being super honest and
Real.
and I hope that people get that. Again, I'm sorry if it upset anybody with getting gruesome. This will probably be one of the more gruesome ones. No, next episode, guys. These next 2 weeks, we go back to fitness, and then I think we're gonna, like, if Kayla's cool with it, hit cannabis after that. So we'll have a lot more like less detailed stuff. But the next 2 months, this shit needs to be talked about. So thanks again, Kay. I think that's probably good. Unless, do you have anything that you want to add into this? Because you always have good words, even though you didn't have the experience.
No, I mean, again, just don't discredit yourselves. Don't distrust yourselves. Don't let doctors tell you they know what's better for your body or they know what's happening to your body. If you are really in tune, like I'm super in tune with mine, and I know when something's up. So don't ever hold on to that one person's opinion, because if it's making you feel like uneasy, that is legitimately your body telling you that something is not right and that you need to keep working on that, because something's up. So just trust yourselves, trust your bodies, trust your intuition. Reach out, and Brandi and I are always here, and I'm just glad that we got to have this talk, because even, and just some of the things that you said too, like how you minimize what happens, and like that in itself, I think a lot of women will come and say, like, yeah, like I relate to that, because I didn't know what to say about it. I didn't know how to talk about it. I didn't know how to say, like, I didn't know how to bring it up. Like, what do you do when you're at your family dinner? Hey guys, I had a miscarriage the other day. Like,
Yeah, totally.
It's weird.
Totally.
So it's super important that people hear those little, even that little bit. Like it makes it more open, I think. And I think that's really important, that we continue to keep pushing and giving people that little bit of like light. So it's just, you don't feel so alone. And even though this isn't my experience, that's what I've taken from our podcast together. I always just know that you're there, and I'm here for you all the time. And I'm glad we got this out, and it's an open conversation, and we can start to like talk to people and have a community, and we could just, so many supports. And I love it. Like, I love what happens with this when we get together and talk.
Me too. And it's like, it's so nice. And there's just been people that have been reaching out over time that I haven't talked to for a couple of years, and like we've always said, me and Kayla are very good at, like, maybe we weren't, I'm not going to say that I wasn't, but I'm very good at not holding guilt anymore for anything, because I've reacted and done things and said things and acted in certain ways that I've held guilt for, that has attributed to my behavior, that I'm not for that anymore. I'm for moving ahead, apologizing, being aware, and just, moving on. And that's kind of the whole point of the show, is not moving on from it, but being at peace with it. And now I'm at peace with what happened, and I'm at peace with talking about it. And I'm okay to say, hey, this was really traumatic. It happened. It was sad. These are the things I did to get through it. If you have to minimize your trauma to survive, I shared something the other day. It's like, sometimes you don't have time. I didn't have time to grieve it. Sometimes when I do that, I minimize it so I can get what I need to get done. And then when I feel safe and vulnerable in a good space, or it's a good time, then I let it all in. And sometimes that's really healthy, and sometimes it's really not. There's a fine line you have to do, but if that's something you need to do, I fully fucking understand that. And if you need to talk, we're always here. And these next 2 episodes, there's something that, and even with the pregnancy one and birth control, that one has not got enough credit. I really want us to, like, we're going to push that one a little bit more, you guys, because it's super important, because it has so much to do with all the rest of these episodes that we're talking about. But this is just the reality and truth of some people. So I want to thank everyone so much for always messaging in and being a part of it and feeling empowered to share their stories. We welcome anybody, anytime. Like you said, we're going to be talking about the fitness world soon and the cannabis world soon, because those are also really fun and interesting topics where we can talk about hard things and good things and start changing the stigma. And this is also another thing. You guys, again, like I said, 1 in 4 women have had some form of child loss, and 1 in 8 struggle with infertility. That is a lot of women in the world. So you're going to know a lot of people like this. Just be kind and spread love. And, we're here when you want to share your story. We understand if you want to keep it private. I kept mine private for years now, but feeling good about sharing what I shared today. And Kayla always makes me feel safe. And I definitely know I have her to talk to. And I think that's just what makes it so easy to push through, is knowing that even if some people don't relate or don't like what I said, I know other people will, and they always support me in my story and my experiences. So that about wraps it up for our episode on our miscarriage today. Next episode, we have some babes coming on sharing their experiences, very different experiences, but nonetheless feeling the same. And again, we're not excited about sharing this, but we're so humbled and honored that people want to share their stories and they feel safe to do so, so that others don't have to feel that way. And so again, thank you guys always for showing up, for being here, for listening. Jump into our next episode. These guests are amazing. And before we sign off today, I just want to remind you guys, in the time, this won't mean anything down the road, but it will be now. We have an amazing giveaway that we're doing right now with a bunch of local people in Grand Prairie, a bunch of local babes. It is such a wild package, you guys. It's over $1,000. It has to be local to Grand Prairie. Don't worry, Kelowna, Victoria, and the World Wide Web. We're going to come up with giveaways for you guys too. But since our heart started and our majority of our fan base is in Grand Prairie, we're going to shout out to you guys first, give you a wicked self-care package that you guys can kind of do. So make sure you're following along with that. Next episode, we're going to talk again, like we said, our guests about their experiences with miscarriage. Kayla's going to take us through her labor and early motherhood next week after that. And then we're going to jump into fitness. So if anything interests you as a guest episode, jump on, let us know. Make sure you're subscribing to all our social media platforms so you are informed. We're getting more and more vocal on there. So jump on our Instagram, YouTube, Facebook page, and our Anchor. And yeah, that's good for me. Keha, good for you. Should we sign off? Goodbye.
Good for me, love. Good for me. That was a really solid sesh, I think.
Perfect. All right, guys. Until next episode. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Thank you guys so much for stopping by today. We appreciate you so much. If you like this episode and you want to hear more or be updated with episode drops, please make sure to send us some love on our Instagram page, the Be Real Babe Podcast. Give us a follow and stay tuned for more realness coming to you next week. Until next time, babes.